All right. A little bit late today because it's Saturday, so you're supposed to be late. That's okay because, we're all locked in. I just want to say thank you to everyone for tuning into the second episode of Celebrating Arts Like Art Athletes. Before we get started, I want to say thank you to a couple people. The Creeds, the twins from Regent, they made the connection with the Kickback and Jay and his team a while ago. Even before we even know who each other was, they were always talking about the good work that the Kickback was doing in the community. And then also Rachel Hale, we had a pretty cool conversation one day where she's like, yo, you really need to rock with these Kickback guys. They're doing some cool stuff in the community. And I still didn't even know who you guys were. And then just by the grace of how the universe works, we kept crossing each other's paths. And I love the work that you guys are doing. I had a lot of time to talk with Jay Skill a couple times on a couple different occasions. We were at a pretty powerful brunch where it was like Dwayne Edwards, Dory from OCAD, just a couple of people who doing a lot of powerful things in the sneaker space and the education space. Mac, I've heard a lot about you through J Scale. I know you got the barbershop, you holding it down. I know the story a little bit. But what I love to do, how I always do it, is I know you guys super well, but I'll let you guys introduce yourself and then I'll have some questions for you guys. So J Scale, Mac, thank you guys for jumping in. Let the people know who you are.
Max.
Jay, go ahead, man.
Okay, well, Jay, Jamal, J Scale, however you want to put it, just for me, in terms of just introducing myself, I would just say that, yeah, likewise, like we grew up in the same community. I've been in the city ever since I was a kid, and I've gone through my experiences of facing limited access and finding my way in photography and being able to travel the world and work with brands and entities such as like the Raptors and Nike and Jordan, and traveling to different places to do such. Really just inspired me at some point to all of these things I didn't know existed as a kid. I wanted to bring it back to the community, starting off where I grew up, Regent Park. And with that being said, I really just jumped into the only thing I knew how, because when I was a kid, long story short, I used to steal stuff to buy sneakers when I was 12 or 13, when I went from a kid size to an adult size, and my mom was saying no now because they're too expensive. So for me, once I started traveling the world and Nike sending me 3 pairs of sneakers a month, and after like, a year, you have like 30 to 50 pairs just chilling. I'm just like, yeah, I remember when I used to steal for this stuff, for this shit. So like, let's try to give them back to kids this year so that they go to school with brand new sneakers and no one has to do anything bad. Or two, just in general, we can help some families. And that's kind of, me and Mac knew each other from like back when we were both in university. He was at York, I was at U of T. We worked at Holt Renfrew together. It was a cool space because we got to meet a lot of businessmen. We got to ask them a lot of questions. We were just always talking about traveling and working together and doing things and giving back and helping. And then naturally at some point what happened was I was like, yo, I got a bunch of sneakers. I'm going to try to grab a bunch more. And from there, we just we did our first event. I know I'm supposed to describe who I am, but like that's literally how me and Matt are connected. The Kickback is a program where I'll get into it after. But yeah, just photographer, ideation behind the Kickback, and I work close in hand with Mac and a bunch of other people. I don't know.
Cool. That's dope. That's dope. Mac, what about you?
Jay, you were on a roll, man. That was good. Well, me, myself, I'm a barber. I've been a barber since I was in the 8th grade. I got my start just cutting hair for friends. I used to cut hair in the high school washrooms. I was cutting hair at like friends' houses, anything I could do just to like, I don't know. I somehow ended up with that passion for wanting to cut hair. I'm lucky I found it at a very young age, and I've somehow managed to use that as my tool to give back, and that's what I do here at the Kickback. Or at least that's just like, that's where it started. That was the inception. So yeah, that's just a little bit of who I am. Barber, local guy, I guess.
I mean, what I think is interesting about both of your stories is like you both have something that you're passionate about and you've used it to give back to the community in a creative way. I know what the kickback is for, but, and I'm sure some people who are on here do, but maybe like from both of your perspectives, like Jay, how did the kickback start? Like, what did that journey look like in the early days? Like, how did the
Yeah.
connective tissue start in building the kickback? Just for people
So
who
to
don't.
leap, so to leap off of what I was saying earlier, essentially the way that I even got into photography was I was I got asked to shoot some stuff for a sneaker store called Livestock, and they asked me to become like their full-time photographer. But I'm like, look, I just got like this cheap camera I got from selling some of my sneakers. So I asked them if they would buy me a camera and I'd work for a year for free. And they said, yeah. So they did that, and that just kind of catapulted me. That kind of pulled me into a new world that I didn't know existed of entrepreneurs, self-employed individuals, create people who make money creating things, people who make money giving people advice, like things like that. I did not know existed growing up. And then that's like being introduced to that. And then like a few years later, after traveling, working and stuff, you're kind of like, whoa, like my friend who got in trouble and got arrested for doing this would have been really good at doing this or doing that or doing this. And you just kind of want to bridge that gap the same way that the owner of Livestock bridged the gap for me and gave me that camera. If he didn't buy me that camera, I didn't know where I'd be today, right? Like maybe I would just be getting my feet wet with photography now because I would have had to work and save up to get that $6,000 camera. That's literally like a barrier to anyone who has an idea or a dream that wants to chase it. So him breaking that barrier for me really motivated me. And there was a point in time where I saw him and I couldn't thank him enough. And he said, once you can give back, give back. And it really took like about a year and a half to really understand what that meant. But the kickback just started off with an idea. It's like, yo, Mac, like this Instagram stuff is cool. Getting people to send me stuff is cool. Getting to travel for free is cool. But like, I don't feel good. Like,
Right.
what the hell does this many followers mean if you're not happy or that whatever? So I'm like, this would make me happy. Like all the sneakers I get because they want me to post, I donated them and we helped somebody this summer. Do you want to cut their hair while we're giving the sneakers? So all we really had was free haircuts and free sneakers for kids going back to school. There was no structure to it whatsoever. I literally would text anyone I knew who also got free sneakers and I said, can I pick up whatever you have? Please and thank you. Like I'll come and pick it up on my bike. We did long hauls. I did Ubers. I'll bike beside the Uber to make sure that all the boxes got there safely. Like I literally collected the first round of sneakers with the help of Mac and my roommate at the time. And we just did it ourselves. Like that's really how it started. There was no structure whatsoever. Jermaine, who actually was my SPSW, like my,
So you went to Pathways? You were Pathways too?
yeah, I was in Pathways.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, he, every time I seen him when he'd give me my bus tickets, he'd just be like, you good? You staying on trouble? What do your grades look like? And for me, like that always just felt like he cared. And I didn't ever have like an older male figure in my life that like I felt like at least cared at that point in my life. So I always wanted to be able to reciprocate that when the time came. And I think the fact that Jermaine was there, the fact that I was given a camera, I kind of combined those two things and I tried to let that embody what I do with my friends. And it really speaks to everything that we're trying to do today in terms of being a mentor and just breaking barriers and breaking access points. And Jermaine said he still cares. That's funny. Of course, I know that. But yeah, with all that being said, just like those are the lessons that were granted to me that kept me out of trouble. And that's kind of where the kickback started. And as simple as it was, just like a simple sneaker drive and free haircuts. Once we did that, I was like, damn, some of these kids just show up to get the sneakers and they didn't learn anything.
Right.
And then me and Mac were like, okay, well, how are they going to learn something? And then it took like, Mac can go from there, but like it took a year before we did our second event. And I think that was about 4 years ago. So now we're like in year 3 technically. But Mac, just go further, dive into it, like explain.
Well, I kind of want to touch up on that, man. I remember that was like one of the like first issues that we came across was that we just started to realize like, oh, okay, giving sneakers is great, but like honestly, like a lot of the times you'll find that the interest is just to be there for the sneakers. So we're like, okay, how do we keep them excited and how do we keep them like, how do we retain them, and how do we get them to want to come back other than just getting sneakers?
Right.
Like, how else can we just, like, give? Like, what else can we do to keep them, like, keep their belief in us, that we're here for you, other than just to give you sneakers, although that is how we relate with each other.
I mean, it's pretty dope to me because, like, I've been working in the sneaker space for a long time. Why I really levitate to what you guys have done is, like, you continue to use sneakers as an engagement tool to do more things with sneakers than, like, the majority of people see sneakers as, like, the consumer side and not the give back side, for lack of a better term. You said that you started the kickback with no structure, right?
Yeah.
Now where it's at now, like, I feel like you guys have a lot more structure to it. Maybe speak to, like, when did you in your mind realize that this is something you really want to make into a real thing, and not just like, okay, I'm going to start taking it serious and building it into to business.
So one of the most important things that I learned as a photographer was that, like, and this, whether you're in Toronto or somewhere else, like, no one really believes in you. No one really believes in you unless they see somebody else believes in you, like, somewhere else in the world. It could be in the States, it could be in Europe, it could be wherever. But you kind of have to do that. But also too, it helps you diversify from the jump. So you kind of have to invest in yourself in that sense. So there came a point in time where we did our first event in Regent, the second event in Bleecker. And then for our third event, Mac, myself, Christian, there wasn't really like an established kickback team. We just kind of, who's been a part of the first two events, who wants to go to Panama. We got connected with somebody. And sometimes I get myself into situations where when I shake on something, I have to do it. So I met this dude, and he said, like, oh, I know like basketball coaches in Panama. I said, man, we always wanted to go give sneakers somewhere else. If you connect us with the coaches, like, this time next year, we're going to be in Panama. So once we said that, it had to happen. And then I was like, yo, we're going to go to Panama, man. I committed to it. We have to do it. How many people want to go? How many sneakers can we gather? That was like our third round of sneaker collections, and we collected like 250 pairs of sneakers. So I think at that point, we probably collected anywhere from like 600 to 800 pairs of sneakers in total over the first year and a half. And we always put that emphasis on quality. Like, if it's not brand new or lightly worn, and by lightly worn, it has to be like a pretty fire pair of J's or something, like, for us to even consider taking. We just want to make sure that the kids are feeling like they're getting something, whether it's a kid or it's someone in their like early 20s. If they're getting something, they don't feel like it's a hand-me-down. They feel like it's an acknowledgement.
Right.
So the kickback just kind of became really serious once we went to Panama, and Mac was just like, yo, I love what we're doing, but I don't know how this works, or I don't know how I fit in this. And in my head, I'm like, I know exactly what you're doing. I just don't know how to put it into words. Right. And then seeing him say that, and then having a few other people mention, like, I love what we're doing, but I just don't know how I fit in. The first question then became, like, with the people I care about, how can I make sure that we all fit in together and we all know our roles and we all understand what we're doing? And then from there, just kind of, that just kind of became this question. And then there was a point, and then I think this is Mac where you can take over. I got asked to go do a job in Phoenix with Paul George. So I was photographing like his new like PlayStation PG2 collab or something. And then him and Christian said, like, yo, can we run a free haircut event without, like, while you're gone? So I'm not even in Toronto, and these guys are running an event without me. And as soon as I seen them run something without me, I knew that we had the power, and it wasn't just based on my availability. It was more so just based on structure. And
that's what became a brand. You recognize it was a brand.
Yeah, as soon as they did something, I realized, like, oh, we can do more. So from there, like, they really motivated me, and I'm like, guys, look, we don't really know what this looks like yet, but let's do one event per month this entire year. And that was in 2018. So we literally just committed to doing one event, whether it was big or small or just one off or random. We just said we would do one event every month. And I think that those pillars and those benchmarks that we set ourselves up for without really knowing what was going to happen, just saying that we would do it, along the way, we kind of gained footing and understood what was potential. Mac was 1 month like, let's do a run club. I'm like, a run club? How do we do a run club? And then we just did it. No one showed up, but we did it. And now today we have a run club, and there's like 80 people committed to it. But like when we first did it, nobody showed up. It was literally me, him, and 2 other people that showed up, and they're all like people we went to Panama with. So we just like, I guess we have to still show up and do this. So like, it really just, to answer that question and Mac take over, it's just like, we didn't really have a structure, but we committed to doing something to just learn more about ourselves each month from 2018 onwards.
So for Mac, when did you see it becoming like, okay, this was kind of cool, but now this is a brand that we've now established? Like from your perspective, when was that moment for you?
Yeah, I mean, it was pretty significant. I mean, we went to Panama, like we were like the team, we were strangers to each other. Like we were friends. A lot of us were friends, but there was new faces. We've never met like some people we've never met, but like we all had the same idea, which was to be here for this thing called the kickback, which no one knew really what it was yet or what we were gonna do in Panama. The intention was to give, and seeing how successful that was, it was kind of like I didn't even think twice. It was just like, all right, what else are we gonna do? It was no longer like, oh, Jamal, like I'm thankful that he invited us to be a part of his thing. It was more just like it already felt like, okay, what else are we gonna do now? It was like you're gonna continue to give to this well, I guess to call it a brand now, but yeah, we were gonna give to this entity that
Right.
without even thinking about it. So I guess right after Panama, seeing like how everyone, we just worked together, being strangers or not, we all became close after that, and it was pretty easy to just, I don't know, go like have that belief that like, all right, let's just keep it going. We're gonna keep this ball rolling. So
Got it.
sorry. So that's when right away we just introduced, like Jamal was saying, we introduced that first. It was a program called Confident Cuts, and the idea was to just, you know, we had a space luckily given to us or provided to us from a community center in Bleecker, the Wellesley Community Center.
Got you.
And yeah, it was just a day to just cut hair. Again, there was no real guideline. We didn't really know what we were gonna do other than to just, hey, I'm gonna be here. I'm gonna have 2 other great barbers with me from the city.
Just give back.
And we're just gonna cut hair for free for the day, just to make sure that like I want these kids to know that, yo, we're gonna be here. We're gonna be in your face a lot more than you think. We're gonna be consistent with how often we're here and being active in the community with you guys.
I mean, here's something that I think is really cool, just listening to both of your stories and where you guys have gone. First of all, you know, congratulations on your continued success. But I think for people listening, what's super important is that how you started was purpose driven, not profit driven.
100%.
That was really, really cool, because like purpose is what's really going to drive you through in those moments of doubt, because like you have a purpose. When it's profit driven, you know, it's easy to be like, you know, man, I'm off this because I ain't making no bread.
Yeah.
I take my hat off to you for sticking it through with purpose, and knowing that the profit will follow it, so it becomes a real thing.
And I think that's the other part to it too, is like we started purpose driven, and the reason why I feel like we're growing the way we're growing, and we're I wouldn't say that. We have like this sense of like calm patience, in the sense that there are opportunities that come our way, or like we have the platform now to reach out to brands X, Y, and Z, but we're more concerned with making sure that no matter what level we're at, that the purpose is always intact. Just because like through my photography, for example, I started taking pictures because I loved it, but I seen what happened when you start to seek, as opposed to just like seek inwards and see what you can pull out of yourself. So with this whole program, like every single day or every single event or every single activation, it's just like, what more can we pull out of ourselves? And like, we might not get like this deal here or this deal there, but we believe in what we're doing. And as the belief gets stronger and it you know, grows exponentially, like we just know that we're always going to have the power to say yes. Like we're in our own space, we're in our own room, building our own tables, building our own chairs, and
Or
we're not
actually,
really concerned what we can get from somewhere else to bring in here. And we're only going to like be receptive to that if we feel like they share the same purpose-driven idea, and they're not just trying to say, hey, we gave back to this community. Yeah, I don't know, just kind of to take off.
sure. I mean, you piggybacked on it very well. I mean, almost just to piggyback on what you said, I think you always have to have the power to say no. I think that's more powerful than learning how to say yes for anybody
100%.
who's trying to get something done. One thing I always talk to people about, like entrepreneurs like yourself, is like, you guys have done great work. People see the end product, but not necessarily get to know how it looks like when you're in the shadows and you have doubts. Maybe speak to like some of the challenges you guys have faced individually, because people will see like, oh man, I seen you got Puma, oh you got Adi, you got Nike, but not understanding like, yo, there's a lot of work that goes into managing relationships, executing shit, the grunt work, the shadow work that people don't necessarily get to see. So I think it's important for you guys not just to share your successes, but share some of the challenges you guys have faced.
I think I could say something, and then Matt could go ahead. But I think for me, starting off just like working by myself, I just have an idea and do it, or I have an idea and I'll go after it. But once you start to build a team and you start to cultivate something that's much larger than yourself, like communication is almost as important, if not more important, than the idea you have yourself. Like I have an idea, but if I were to just throw it up or go through it and not really like say, hey Mac, how do you feel about this, or this, how do you feel about this, or let them know that these are the things that could potentially upcome, and do they want to chime in and consider how this could be better. I would always think that I'd be inconveniencing someone because they might be busy, so I'll just try to do it myself. But you really can't do anything yourself when you have a large group of people. So for example, the Puma tournament, we did it for a second year. The first year, it happened so fast that we weren't able to communicate. But when we did it this past year, Mac had this whole setup where everyone was able to come and get free haircuts in between the games or during the games, free food, all of this stuff. And he was able to do that because we had a conversation well in advance. We knew that we were doing the Puma tournament months ahead as opposed to like weeks ahead. So communication is everything. And I think that's probably been the biggest challenge. And then the other part of it is just like, you have these ideas. You'd love for it to be consistent. You'd love to have the funding, but naturally, like if you believe in it, sometimes those things are just going to have to come out of your own pocket or your own commitment. Like it might not make sense sometimes. You might feel like people don't understand it, but it just means that you need to break down the language that much further.
No, for sure. Absolutely. And I think something you just said that's important is like, don't always look for, you know, how can we get it funded? Sometimes you have to just bet on yourself and invest in yourself to push your idea forward if you really believe in it. Well, Matt, talk to me. Let me see what you're thinking about from the challenges side.
Well, that's what I was just thinking about. I'm like, okay, I got to come up with something. I got to have some sort of answer for challenges. But I'm not quite sure if I do, to be honest, just because, yeah, I think early on in the beginning with our, with the first few events that we did held, I think the only challenges were just, when you're working with such a big team, like Jay was saying, it's about communication and knowing each other's roles and their given roles and trusting that they will uphold their responsibilities. But everything always ends up working out smoothly. But those would be like like if someone was to watch this and want to do something like this on their own, I would say is just to make sure that your idea of what you want to do is perfectly highlighted and explained thoroughly to your team or whoever you're going to work with. And I think from there, you're going to be okay. As long as there's constant open communication, it's going to run smoothly. But other than that, I don't know. There's the team is just, I think we're blessed and fortunate to just have such great people part of this team. And that's what makes things just go so seamlessly. The challenges are very far and few between. They're hard to come across, and when they do pop up, okay, another challenge would have been, if I have to mention, it would be trying to get people to come out to something that you feel so passionate about. Like, let's say, like when we first introduced the Run Club, it was far-fetched. It was like, what are we even doing? What, you guys give sneakers, why are you guys starting a run club? So it's to get that backing, that like the belief behind, I would say it was a challenge at first, but it's the consistency of just doing it, whether people show up or not. You believe in it, the team believes in it, we're gonna be there,
Yeah.
and then it just rolls out and it turns into something magical.
Yeah, I think even too, just like one of the challenges we face now is like, no matter what point, when you grow or when you feel like you're growing as a brand or a company or a charity, however you want to pose it, people are always going to see you for what you were, and they're always going to refer to you as such. So when people reach out and say, "Yo, I love this project," now, in my head, I'm like, "Yo, it's not a project. We did the project 3 years ago. Like we did one project 3 years ago. Like it's not called a project." But I'm not gonna page them about that. It just lets me know that we gotta prove ourselves that much more. And it's like those are the moments where it's just like if someone calls you an influencer, or someone calls you a Instagrammer, or you're just a photographer. Like even to like to get into the space of like when I was a photographer, I had ideas for events for community, but I would walk into like a brand and pitch them this full thing with this agency me and my friends have created. We have an agency as well. It's called Tier Zero. So Tier Zero helps a lot with the production of what we do. And we'll walk into a company and we'll say, "Hey, we want to do this big event similar to the structure of like the Puma basketball tournament." And I love that Puma believed in us from day one, and they trusted us with every approach we took, even sometimes if we were like we went too far off, and they said, "Hey, come back, like too far." But overall, like there were people that would say like, "No, I don't care how good this idea is, you're a photographer." You know what I mean? So for us and me, just being so grateful with the amazing people I'm surrounded with, Mac, everyone, like all the females that check us and make sure that we're being mindful of everything in general, right? Like, with that being said, it's just like, I don't even know where I'm going, but just like, I don't even know, honestly, I don't know where I'm going. It's just that like, people are going to tell you that you can't do something, and you kind of have to invest in yourself. Yeah. And go above and beyond and say, you know what, like they can call me this, they can call me a project, they can call me a photographer, they can call Mac a barber. Mac's like, I'm more than a barber. I do more than just cut hair, you know, like he's the leader behind the Run Club. It's why it is where it is today. So that's like a community relations. Like there's people who get paid X amount to do these jobs. Like these are big jobs that require a certain like type of empathy and skill set that we have. And I think it's just believing in yourself, no matter what stage you're at.
I think what's really, really cool, and you know, I'll always say this about, and I'm not calling it a project, but the kickback and your whole team is just the existence of what you guys are doing is starting to shift the image of what young people that live in certain areas see as success.
100%.
Or see as like, here's an access point. You know, like I could be a photographer and do okay. I could be a barber and be okay. Since you guys are working around the next generation, that's pretty much the purpose behind everything you do. Where do you see some of the opportunities for like the next generation? Like, because I'm always passionate about, yeah, when I was in grade 8, the guidance counselor was telling me to go get a bank go for a job at BMO, because that's the only thing they knew. But you guys are around, you're seeing like, you're around sports, you're around culture, you're around all these different things. Where do you see some of the opportunities for like the next generation to like dive into if they want to be creatives?
I think because of our program is relative to our experiences, I feel like, there's a lot of kids now that have gotten a camera or have expressed interest in starting their own business and things like that. Like, yeah, when you're growing up, the only person you seen with money was like someone making music or somebody, you know, selling drugs or something. So like, those are like, oh, I want to make money. what else? There's no other thing to think of. But then if as a photographer or a barber or a videographer or an illustrator or a designer, to see that person and to see them say, oh, I'm going to Mexico for a week, or to say I'm going to Paris for this or that, or I'm going to Tokyo to just chill for like 2 weeks, or like, you could do that as that. So I think kids, especially like in underserved communities, they have like a hustle in comparison to no other. It's just that their points of reference are still very vague. But I think even too with the kickback, just like putting them in a space where it's like, oh, you can run beside someone who is like a lead marketer at Nike, or you can run beside someone who did social media for the Raptors or this or that. So I think even too, like, internet, of course, provides more access and understanding to potential careers, but I think kids always are going to gravitate towards people that they could relate to.
Absolutely, for sure.
And things like Confident Cuts provides them, like, we'll do an event, but they're going to feel more comfortable after being able to sit down in a chair with Mac and just talk about feelings and what's going through their head at 14, and then coming back again at 15 and just checking in and things like that.
For sure. Mac, what are you thinking?
Well, where I do plan to see, you know, this next generation is hopefully just they'll be in a space where they know that the opportunity isn't as far out to reach than they think, that it's a lot easier to actually access your goals if you are if you're in that if you're in that mindset. And so like what we're doing right now and what we like try to impose on these kids is that, yeah, okay, you want to be a basketball player, okay, that's great, but what happens if that doesn't happen? What else? If you love basketball, there's all these other options that you can do. So it's helping them to realize that there's more options than what they originally know. And man, I forget where I'm going with that.
It's Saturday, man. It's all right.
No, well, you know, it's where it's just that I hope that we get to see them reach for their, like, so for example, introducing photography and introducing videography and introducing things like, oh, you can cut hair or you can learn to dance, or sparking their creative side is I think is really important, other than to just sit down and you know, go through a textbook. We do workshops with them. We sit down with them, but we're not asking them math questions and science questions. We're asking them questions that I don't think that they've been asked yet by anybody else, because I can tell by their answers that they're unsure of even what they feel. And so hopefully this next generation is just a lot more insightful with who they are themselves, and it's going to be a lot clearer for them to know what they want to do and navigate and learn how to navigate to get there. So I'm really hoping that that's where it goes to, you know?
I mean, you guys are setting such great examples of like what success could look like. I think, you know, I grew up in Parkdale, and I remember when I was young, 14, like there was no Mac and there was no J Skill that were photographers and barber that I viewed as successful, right? Like success to me was the bank teller, because I was like, oh, they got a salary job, they got insurance. So if they get sick, you know, their medicine is cheap. Like that's how I looked at success. I mean, I think now in today's game, younger people have examples like you guys, where I don't necessarily have to follow the normal track. So that's why I think it's super cool that you guys are setting that example. I view you guys as both creative entrepreneurs, and being an entrepreneur, I think what I would love to just hear from both of you is like, there's always let's say a bridge that needs to get crossed between purpose and getting paid, right? So like, how do you, and you guys could popcorn style this, whoever jumps in, like, how do you make that decision to be like, you know, I'm cool with this one and not getting paid, versus like, this is when I absolutely have to get paid? Because there's a fine line between the two, and sometimes entrepreneurs struggle with that line, you know? So maybe speak to that a little bit, like, how do you separate the purpose work from the paid work?
Jay, you want to take it?
Yeah, I think Matt can speak to his approach, but for me, my life, the way it works is like I've been in a position where like every single job, I never had a real structure in terms of having a salary. Like everything is paycheck to paycheck. In terms of how income comes in, it's just very like project based, or photo op based, and yeah, I think learning from that is just like as important as pay is. It's just like if you have the foresight for what it is you want. And I asked you that question about like a brand that was hitting us up and asking us to do a lot of work for something last year. And I said, honestly, I think it's worth this much. Like there's work outside of the community component that I don't necessarily have time for. And again, one of the challenges too is that you start off with the intention of just giving back, right? And you do that when you have time for it. But the way I think, the way Mac thinks, the way a lot of entrepreneurs are just people who want to always improve think is like, if I do something, the next time I do it, it has to be better.
Right.
Then you reach a certain point where it's a lot better than it was when you just did it for fun. And now you need to dedicate time out of the time that you would get paid to do a photo project to now do this. And you kind of go through that phase where you're just like, damn, like this is community work, but the demand for it is increasing. But the only thing that takes away from is either like, I don't know, like my sleep or like actual paid work. And even too, if it is taking away from my sleep or actual paid work, in a way, it's taking away from your actual paid work too, because you're not I'm not studying photography as much anymore. I'm learning about how to communicate with the team, or I'm learning about how to, I don't know, like all the other shit you wouldn't think about, right? And you're no longer just like focused on the thing that you were earning an income for. So it takes a toll on you in that way too. And then you kind of reach a point where it's like, should we be getting paid for this? And it's like, but you don't want to tell people you're getting paid to work in the community, right? Because like it should just come from the goodness of your heart. But it's like, if that's the hard part, like they don't really like see that of value. And I think one of the things that we're trying to do now is we're trying to redefine what that looks like and speak to people and let them understand that working in the community comes with a certain type of intelligence. The same way that working as an artist, or working as a, I don't know, like you have a store and you sell cookies or coffee or whatever, like there's a certain type of intelligence that comes with operating and having an impact on community at a high level. And in order to do that, you kind of have to, whether you look at it as sacrifice or dedication, it requires a huge commitment. And I think like we want to be able to get to a point where we are able to be examples, positive examples of, but just be able to speak on behalf of the fact, like, look what happens when you invest into community. So even too, like for us, the brand part of what we do, like in some capacity, like that does come as paid work, but only because like there's skill sets outside of the community that are a necessity to executing the program.
I think it's super cool that you say, you know, there's a skill set to community work, because I think sometimes people just feel like
you're supposed to do it.
It was not even, you're supposed to do it, but they don't understand that there's a talent that goes into being able to navigate a community.
It's a type of empathy that a painter has, or it's a type of empathy that a director has. It's just like,
you're an artist in reality.
We're creating for community, and that's the whole part of it, where it's just like we also wanted to make sure that what we were creating didn't just look like a charity, because we knew that if we created something that just looked like a charity, we'd be treated like a charity. So we wanted to create something where it has the appeal of a brand that everyone covets, but it also has impact as like your favorite charity. So that's like that balancing act that we're playing on a daily basis now. And that's a challenge that we're trying to make sense of. But I feel like even too, with this time and not being able to do activations and work with large groups of youth at a time, we're learning like, oh, we need to have like, you know, resources digitally, resources in different capacities, just so like that understanding or that thing that we're trying to provide is always there.
Right. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Mac, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to defining the difference between purpose and profit is like it's almost a little strange because of what we do. It's
Right.
like it's kind of hard to be like, well, we should be getting money for this because in reality, half or like at least most of what we do really comes out of our own pockets. Like these trips when we go to like Puerto Rico, Dominican, Panama, things like that, like this is coming out of our own pocket. Like so it was always it's always purpose first in that sense, right? Like everything what we do it's for the purpose, and the profit is really just the success of the event itself. I would relate that to.
For sure.
Um,
I mean,
yeah.
I think that what's really, really cool, and you guys have said this a couple times, is like you have figured out how to invest in yourself, and then the profit comes after. Like I
Yeah.
think a lot of people don't realize that like purpose will lead you to your profit and revenue, but when you put revenue and profit before your purpose, it usually never works out to be anything.
You fall down
Well, yeah, you fall down.
at
It's
some point.
hard for you to drive your vehicle because the gas that's in your car can run out at any time. When it's purpose driven, you have unlimited amount of gas that's filled with purpose. So like you can always keep going. You know, that's going to be the difference where you work through the night because you really believe it. Um, so I'm gonna take a quick shift. You know, like the shout out to the whole Yellowbrick team. Like we have a whole bunch of classes that help people navigate cool spaces, but education as itself has changed. I know Jay, you and I spoke about that a couple times. How do you, or let me ask it this way. What would you say is real education? Because I'm a real person where I get the value of going to school, but I also understand there's other ways to be educated. So in your perspective, like if you have to answer the question, what's real education? How would you describe that?
I think simple, straightforward is just like if you're talking specifically to a youth or in general specific to youth respectively, um, real education is understanding or paying attention to the person in front of you, the kid in front of you, seeing what they enjoy, what they love, and helping them dive deeper and deeper and deeper into that. So I think education is specific to each individual. And of course, we need to know our math, we need to know our English, we need to know our science and our understanding of the world through geography and stuff like that, and
Right.
all that other stuff in school. But I think the real education is whatever it is that you're most passionate about, there's always something more you can learn within that. So you might not know nothing about they often refer to it as book smart and street smart, but like there's art smart, there's sports smart, like real education. Like I think even too like the notion of like if you don't, obviously good grades and stuff are necessary for on the court, but for example someone playing sports, but I also think, and of course like getting good grades is going to help you there, but I also think that the intelligence that an athlete displays on a court needs to be acknowledged. And I think there's real education there. If like maybe you can't explain business to them, but there's a way to help them understand play-by-plays and sequences or something like that. It's just like gearing it specific towards that individual. And I think all those other things are necessary, but I feel like real education comes when like you have a balance, but there's something that you're invested in. And like you help that person dive deeper and deeper into that.
Absolutely. Mac, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I really I agree with Jay. It's I think real education, and I just watched Belly, so this is fresh in my head. But having knowledge of self, I think is really important. And so when we have these conversations with these kids, and when we're talking to them, I think it's real important to ask key questions that really force them to think about what they truly think of themselves and what their true interests are outside of just what the group of friends may like. It's like you individually, what are your passions? Let's try and discover that. I think finding that of you through in yourself is real important to teach, or at least to get that kind of train of thought going. That to me would be I guess, yeah, real education. It's just understanding, is trying to teach yourself of who you are.
I mean, to piggyback and add on that, for me, like I've worked with a lot of creatives, done a lot of cool things. I think I'd look at education from two different perspectives. There's, you went to an academic institution and you got an education. That's cool. Then I think we've been conditioned to look at when something is hard that we don't want to do it. So I think when something is hard, I've started to train my brain is run towards it, because that's the real education. And you're feeling uncomfortable in it, that's when you're going to learn the most. That's education to me. But when it's just like, oh, you know what, like it's feeling great to just be out here, especially when you're creative and especially when you're entrepreneur. As soon as you start feeling uncomfortable, that's when you're about to learn a whole bunch of shit. So
Yeah.
there's some questions in the chat here. One of them asks, do you guys personally work with other creatives who are less established than you guys are?
For sure, that's the whole point. That's the whole point. In terms of less established, I feel like we're always learning, but we wanted to create the kickback with the intention of, as the platform elevates, or for example, we do the Puma basketball tournament. Any kid in the hood who has a camera, who wants to come and have an opportunity to shoot something for a brand, it's right there in front of you.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? So we try to present things, and then whoever shows up or whoever's hungry for it, it's there. There's kids that we acknowledge. There's kids that we work with that have said like, yo, I want to be a rapper. I'm like, okay, sure. Or I've done poetry. Okay, so I want you to recite the whole like Reebok commercial that we did, right? So I think we just wanted to legitimize our platform so that we can provide those opportunities directly to the community. And it's kids from the communities that these brands are trying to be in, that are actually a part of the project, as opposed to just like getting a permit to go to that. We don't need a permit. We just kind of go and we do what we want to do. And the kids are the ones doing it. And in that sense, they're actually learning something, as opposed to, you probably remember when you're younger, they're probably shooting a commercial in your neighborhood. And you're like, what are they doing? But like, we're going to be in the community shooting a commercial or doing something. It's like, oh, what up? Like, you guys are doing this? And they're like, what are you guys doing? And then they see it. And they're like, oh, I can't believe that. Like, like Caden and Winnie did that. Or like, you know what I mean? It's just like,
sure.
And then that's another education for them too. They can be like, my homie's in that. So if he can do it and we're in the same class, and maybe I get better grades than him, then I could do it too. You never know. Like, depends on how they want to look at it. But we learned really early on that there's only so much we can say to them before they're just like, this guy's just trying to tell me that my life can be better. So we're like, okay, well, the kids who meet us halfway, let's let them be the ones to show them that they can do that, rather than us trying to tell them something. It's like their friend doing it because their friend was taking it seriously. So then when they're in class the next day, they can be like, yo, why did the kickback reach out to you? And they can be like, yo, I'm doing my shit. Like, I'm focused.
No, we have about 10 minutes left, and I always like to give our guests an opportunity to share some advice before we close it out. So Mac, I'll start with you. Like, if you had to give advice to, not only people who are younger, because I feel like there's a lot more people who are older, especially after we come out of COVID, who are now trying to pivot and do something that they may have wanted to do a long time ago, but now they're kind of like, man, you know what, here's my opportunity to make a move. What advice would you give to somebody who's either trying to make a pivot or wants to get into creative field?
I would say find a team. I think that's just, I think it's just so important. Like your ego might get in the way once in a while, and you're like, I want to do this for myself. I want to do it by myself.
Mm-hmm.
But I think once you need to get over that and really find a group of friends that you really trust and that you can find it in yourself to be that trusting with an idea that you have, that it won't get tarnished and it's going to come out how you wanted it, or even better than how you wanted it. But I think it's all through trusting a team, and having a team is just, I think it's real important when it comes to that.
No, that's something I actually say all the time. I overlooked that in my younger days where I was just like, I could do all this shit by myself.
Yeah.
And then you get burnt out. One of the things I say to myself every day is like, make sure you find people who are good at doing things that you're not good at.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's super important, you know. Jay, what
Yeah,
about?
like, oh no, yeah.
Go ahead, man. Go ahead, Mac. I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, I was just gonna say, like, yeah, it's important to see someone for who they are, like someone who has the sun shining through them. I think that's real important to know that your teammate, your friend right next to you, is so far talented in this aspect that you need to, like, not be timid from that, but
Mm-hmm.
to use that and know that your team is that much stronger with that power right beside you. You know, so
Absolutely.
it's really, it just comes down to having a team that you truly trust and working with people that you admire.
I seen D Wells is in there chatting it up. We call that Voltron all the time.
Uh,
How do you set up the Voltron? You know, Jay, advice that you would share with you know the people, or
I would say that too, like just to kind of leapfrog off of what Max said. But in general, it's just like, yeah, having a team is super important. Holding the people around you accountable, like, but also you can't just depend on having a team to get started. It's like the people that are around you, like if you have an idea, build it and involve the people you love, and your team is going to formulate itself. Like your team is going to come based on who all follows through with the work, who played their part to the highest level. And whether you're a leader or you're even too, as a leader, you want to make sure that everyone in the team is a leader as well. Everyone plays an equal role, but at the same time, like you can have the vision, but there's parts of the vision you can't see, and you need to like notice that, and like what Mac is saying, acknowledge that and trust them for that insight or for that intelligence, and let them run with it. It's like it's honestly, like the best way I'll put it is the kickback has taught me so much about kids. I've learned so much about myself through kids, I should say. You look at a kid that's 8 years old, and you know that at 10 years old, they're going to be much better at whatever sport they enjoy playing now. You know that they're going to be able to read a lot better. You know that they're going to be a lot taller, whatever, all these different things. You know that they're going to grow. But it's because what kids do is kids don't, and obviously they don't have to worry about real life shit like adults do, but kids don't really worry about what the end result looks like. They're not too concerned with what this pile of clay is going to look like when they're done. They just, oh, like I want to make a bear or something. They just get started, you know? And then towards the end, it might not look like a bear, but they'll try to figure it out and bring it back to what they intended to do from the start. But I think the best way to put it is just like, whether it's 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, like it's like that life is long, you know, like whether you're 35 or 13, like 3 years could change your life. If you're present, if you can acknowledge the people that are around you that you love, and you can respect them, and you can enable them while you're enabling yourself, and you honestly just like cut out all the excuses, cut out all the things, and just find solutions, and just find solutions to the best of your capability. Those solutions become more powerful as you go. Like there's so many things that could have stopped us after Mac and Christian did that haircut thing. Like if they did confident cuts and I'm like, oh, well, I guess we're like a real charity now. Like, what do we do? Like, we wouldn't have done anything, but it's like, let's just do something. And then after we do a bunch of things, we'll have a better understanding as to who we are. So it's just like, deal with what's in front of you. And if you do that for 3-4 years at the highest level with the most possible attention you can give, and of course, people have different situations, but if you give it as much attention as possible, you're going to get the best result for that. And it might not be exactly what you want it to be 2 years from now or 3 years from now, but eventually it's just going to crack. It's going to break. It's going to open up. And it might not happen to you're 50. One of my favorite artists that I was aware of, but I didn't know it was him specifically is Arthur Jafa, an artist who was like a cinematographer. He worked with Spike Lee in the 90s, and he just kind of broke through in his 50s. So if there's someone you want to search, he has a bunch of conversations on YouTube. You search Arthur Jafa, Love is the Message. He just like made this random YouTube video one day where he just kind of put together clips of just like what Black looks like in America. And you watch it and you're like, you just want the video to go on forever. But he was just like, yeah, I just made this when I was at the airport one day, and I was just gonna put it on YouTube, but my friend told me that I should show it in a museum. And then that was a big difference. That was a big difference for him. But that happened at 56. Before that, like, he was just trying to get jobs here and there. He was taking the bus in LA, like all these things. Like, it really just comes down to being true to you, no matter what age you are. And it's like, if you want to be an artist, if you want to be a creative, like, it's gonna throw you down like 100 times. It's gonna throw you down 200 times, and you can't let the things surrounding you be the reason why you stop. You kind of have to look inside and say, well, how can I deal with these things on the first layer? Okay, I broke through the first layer. What's the second layer? Let's break through the layers, and sooner or later, you're gonna find that sense of freedom that's true to you.
I mean, you've said it a couple times where it's important to work from the inside out. I think that's a strong message for people to definitely walk away with. We have about 2 more minutes, but there's a couple questions that I think are individual questions for you guys. But maybe share how people can get in contact with you, Jay and Mac, and then some final statements, and then we'll wrap it up. But like, Mac, maybe share, your IG or however you would like people to, they have questions for you or they're looking for advice, what would be the best way to hit you?
Best way, honestly, obviously through, I think Instagram would be the easiest way. You can find me at Mackie Chan.
Right.
Like Jackie Chan, but Mackie Chan. And also Kickback Connect. That's where you'll find everything that we do. You'll find the team there. It's easy to get in contact with us through email as well. Everything's in the bio. But yeah, Mackie Chan, Kickback Connect. Check us out.
Jay, what about you? Just bless them with the contact or the best way. I know you're one who moves in the shadows. You don't like people to find you, bro.
I would say, yeah, Kickback Connect. The best time for us to like connect is, as inappropriate as I say, is in real life. But
we in COVID, dog.
Yeah, no, but we have things in place. We have Positive Pockets, Kickback Connect. We're always trying to drop information, drop knowledge. Kickbackconnect.com. Same for IG and the website. But in general, we have like a run club, and the run club is geared towards mentors and youth running together. Run clubs are usually like this niche pocket here, this niche pocket there. But we just really want to create a space where you can come and run with young kids, and like what I was saying, what I've learned from kids. So the same way that we can pass that advice and all the lessons we've learned, you can bestow that upon a kid. But like, you can listen to their thought process, and you're like, well, if this is their thought process and I know that they're going to grow, what can I extract from that and apply to my daily regimen? So we have the run club, we have a bunch of things, and we're going to be throwing out more stuff as time goes along and things open up. But stay tuned. Look out for our posts. Check our website. We're gonna start a newsletter really soon. There's a bunch of stuff happening. We're just taking it day by day, and then even too, like with any of the females that are watching, we have like a space where women are able to kind of identify and come together and just like do like fun crafts or talk about ideas and thoughts, personal, specific to them. And it's very open, it's very inclusive, and that kind of just started, and it's one of the things that we're like super excited about. So everything you can see is like, go to Kickback Connect on Instagram, look at everyone we're following. I just mentioned Patrick, you'll see their Instagram as you look through that. And then all the people that are a part of the Kickback, we follow them. So if you see someone and they're a cinematographer and we follow them, they're a part of the Kickback. So they'll answer any questions you have. If you see someone and they're an author, if you see someone, they're a designer, if they open a store and you tell them that, hey, I came through your stuff through the Kickback, they'll all answer right away.
I mean, to close out, I guess I got to say a couple thank yous. Thank you to the whole Yellowbrick team. for creating this platform. There's a whole bunch of other series, other conversations that we'll be having. You can check it out at yellowbrick.co/marked. Shout out to the whole Mark team for working hard behind the scenes. And shout out to both of you, man. What I'll close out saying is, like, when you try to build relationships, make sure they're organic and authentic. The way that we've built this relationship between Jay, myself, Mac, and the kickback has just been authentic. It wasn't forced. It's something that I thought, was really, really cool. And we found a way to, like, build a cool relationship and hopefully help people with knowledge and do more and more things in the community. But I wanted to just say thank you both for spending your Saturday midday with me, chopping it up and, sharing some of your knowledge. Of course, we should definitely figure out how to do more stuff together.
Mm-hmm.
But from my team to your team, thank you so much for dropping the gems and continue doing the work that you guys are doing. It's super important work. And like you said, Jay and Mac, it's not a project. It's real shit. Don't call it a project. Respect it for what it is. And, I take my hat off for you guys to do that shit.
Well, thank you for having us. Thank you for inviting us. Thanks for everyone for watching.
Sure.
My little bit
keep
right
asking
there.
me about this sneaker school hat. I don't know, man. I'm gonna figure it out eventually.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you guys listening to us, especially if you stayed the whole hour. It's all love, and one of the biggest things is that we want to bring more global understanding to Toronto. So whether you're in Toronto or New York or wherever you're watching this from, like, we hope to meet everyone in person, provide everyone some type of valuable insight, and just trust the process that we're going through. And we're looking forward to continually growing together. Yeah.
I think from both sides, we're all going through this situation called COVID together. Stay safe out there. Crack a smile, give someone some encouragement, because you never know what they're going through. But most of all, stay safe. And thank you guys again, man.
Yes. All right. Peace, everybody.
All right, peace, man. Enjoy your Saturday. Enjoy your weekend. We'll catch up. Jay and Mac, I appreciate y'all.
Thank you.
All right,
Peace.
bro.
Later.